Hey guys, Spear here. I'm here to show you the best and most viable picks in every position for this Fantasy Premier League season. Without further ado, let's get into the video. So just an introduction before we get into the stats and every single viable player, in my opinion, for the upcoming game. I think, first of all, in your current draft, you need to have one of Haaland or Salah. You can't go without both. You need to have one of them because they're both very, very good captaincy options. If you want to go into a bit more detail on that, you can have a look at my deep dives in the description below, going into great detail on Haaland versus Salah debate, the stats behind it, and what each draft allows with or without them, or with both of them. I would also like to say I think you should have one of Son or Saka in your team because it allows for flexibility in that 10 million area if you want to go elsewhere there. Also to allow flexibility at different prices, so don't try and have 3 people at 7 million. Try and have, one at 5.5, one at 7, one at 10, because it allows you that flexibility to move very easily and fluidly throughout the season. I will say depth nowadays will help you even more so because of the new change in rules for extra transfers being allowed to be saved. Also, with a lot of the risky picks coming up this season, especially to start the season, I feel as though it's really not a bad idea to have some strength in depth. Things to avoid before we get to the first group of players: avoid potential non-starters, avoid any late returnees. I'm not a fan of that personally. And avoid any teams with bad opening free fixtures, those of which you won't see in my recommendations. For example, Wolves and Brighton. Actually, one Brighton player does appear. There's no need for huge risks right now. Just pick the players that you're happy with. I think I've got for you today in my video the most viable players, so you can simply pick your favorites from these lists. Okay? All right. So, first up, we have the goalkeepers, and it's a very short list. If you want more in-depth analysis on this, you can have a look at my full goalkeeper guide. For me, I think if you're going anywhere around 5 or 5.5 million for a solo goalkeeper, it's David Raya and no one else. The reason that Alisson doesn't appear is because you want triple Liverpool elsewhere, and he takes up a slot. Whilst the Arsenal defence is just buyable into, because that's what you're buying into, is the clean sheet potential. I don't think you should go with him because, as you can see there, we have 1.4 saves per game, which might even go lower this season. And their fixtures aren't very good. So I personally don't recommend Raya, but he is that premium 5 to 5.5 million pick if you ask me who I think you should go with in that zone. Next up, we have Sells of Nottingham Forest. And as you can see, I've added a risk zone to these picks as well. So Sells is obviously a medium risk pick. He's starting the season. I have no doubt about that personally. But there's always the chance that Miguel or Turner could take his place. And they might even sign another goalkeeper. So my advice for you, if you have Sells, is to have either Turner as your second keeper. Even then, you're not completely covered, hence the medium risk. I'm considering doing that. Or you have a backup 4.5, which is probably the smart play. Someone like Henderson would be good in that position. Bringing us to Henderson himself for Crystal Palace. A good, reliable solo goalkeeper he's going to play. I don't actually like Palace's fixtures for a solo defender or solo goalkeeper to keep playing, because they don't do well away from home. But he is there, and he's one of the best 4.5s. I do like the rotation between him and Sells, or him and Flecken. Next up is Sanchez. Again, one that you would rotate, maybe with Sells, for example. He does actually rotate quite well with him. Medium risk again, maybe slightly lower risk than Sells, but Chelsea love buying goalkeepers, so they may buy another one, and he may be ousted by even one of the benched goalkeepers currently. I do think they have interesting fixtures though after the first game week. I don't really think he's the top 4.5 pick. I think he's the worst pick on here in terms of clean sheet prospect, because Maresca doesn't seem to have got them organised at the back yet. Flecken is the last pick there, and I think he's very, very viable, very, very safe, and he's the main pick here that has a 4.0 backup and Valdemirson that you can just put in there and have a lot of safety and security in goal. And that's really not a bad route either. So if you're going solo, for me, it's a 4.5, then it sells Henderson or Flecken. I personally sway towards sells right now because of how good their fixtures are, but it's really personal preference. And if you're rotating, go and look at my goalkeepers video to see who rotates best. I don't recommend Raya, but I understand why the temptation is there to go for the Spaniard. On to then some more interesting stuff. And what I'm going to show you here is this sorted by price, attacking quality and defensive quality. That's for your benefit, right? We're not going to spend a long time on every single one of those pages. I'm just going to show you those to give you that sort of price bracket. As you can see here, I've only included 4 premiums. A premium in defense for me would be anything 5 and above. My issue with Vardiol is his cost related to his potential output. I do think he'll have reduced goal involvement output this season. He'll still be first choice left back. I have no doubt about that. But with the slight formation switch Guardiola's messing around with, I worry for his output lowering a little bit, but his clean sheet output should be great. The other premium that I'm a little worried about is Munoz, because I think you need to rotate him personally if you pick him, because Palace are much better at home than they are away, which you'll see in some stats coming up later. Pedro Porro, Tottenham's defense isn't very good, but Pedro Porro is a phenomenal attacking fullback, one of the best in the world at that from right back anyway. And then Trent Alexander-Arnold probably is the best attacking right back in the world in terms of his attacking prowess anyway. The same with Porro. I'm not talking about the defensive assets. Yeah, the nice thing about Trent is you do get a solid defense there. It'll be interesting to see how Slot's management style transitions to Liverpool's clean sheets prospects and how he utilizes Trent more as well. Then you can see all the 4.5s. There's loads of them, and rather than discuss every single one, I'll discuss them as they come up. We have 3 4.0s, and as you can see, Barco has dropped off the list. Brighton, as of the recording of this video, look like they're in the very, very final stages of signing Kadioglu from Fenerbahce, who would be the record signing and plays left back. For those of you who follow me on Twitter, you'll see that his most recent games, I think 12 of 14 have come at left back. Barco plays left back. They're not going to sign a record. They're not going to pay a record fee to bench a player. Yes, they could play him at right back, I suppose, but Veltman's very solid at right back, and they might give Kadioglu freedom in his natural position at left back. And Kadioglu is a lot stronger than Barco as well, so it might give some more defensive solidity, being that, you know, Barco's 5'6", so he's not going to be the best player to defend crosses, for example, or to go up against physical sides. So he drops out the list completely. I wouldn't recommend Barco. Don't pick Barco. There's no need to. So if you want a 4.0, for me, Greaves is the best option at Ipswich. Significantly better threat than Johnson, who for some reason people are picking over him. The only issue with Greaves is his disciplinary history. And then we have Howard Bellis, very popular, very nailed, good goal involvement, better disciplinary restraint than Greaves. And Wout Face as well, of Leicester City and Belgium. With the 3 4.0s, all you should do with those is have maximum one of them. And if you do have one of them, you're picking the one that you will most likely need, given your 3 starting players have bad fixtures, right? So look at your fixtures coming up, and if in, say, game week 7, they have a trash fixture, see who has the best fixture out of your 4.0s and just pick that one. That's my advice to you. I wouldn't pick just the one you think is best. I would pick the one you think is most appropriate for your defensive coverage, okay? I wouldn't bother with Barco. As I said, I'll discuss the 4.5s in more detail. We will go to here, attacking quality. As you see with attacking quality, the Leaf Davis, goes almost to the top there. He's still very interesting to me, though as you can see, his goal involvement was massively outperformed his actual expected goal involvement. I do expect Ipswich to concede a lot of goals as well, and the fixtures are rubbish till game week 3. But for those of you doing 5 rotations, or 4 rotations either. He could come in game week 3, but I wouldn't be transferring him. I'd be starting with him, but just benching him for 2 weeks. But that is an interesting one. It's not one I'm going to go with personally. As you can see, Vardiol moves down in terms of attacking quality, and he's only slightly ahead of a lot of the 4.5s. I expect Robinson to increase this season in terms of attacking output. Burn will probably regress a little. When I put Burn in there as well, you can go for a more high-risk pick in Hall. Don't go for Livramento, because Trippier is staying at Newcastle, it looks like, because West Ham have signed Aaron Wan-Bissaka, not Trippier. If you want a little bit more risk, but a little bit more attacking prowess, you can go with Hall. If you want less risk with some attacking prowess still, I would go with Burn. Personally, if it was me right now, I'd probably go with Burn. But if you're picking very short term, then I would go with Hall. My issue with those two is how poorly they rotate and how they have a lot of away fixtures, which Newcastle defensively don't do well in. Yeah, you can see the rest of the attacking quality there if you want to. We'll go into defensive quality here. So I'm sorting this by expected goals conceded for each team. I've synthesized a statistic for the I almost said relegated sides. The promoted, they're not relegated yet. The promoted sides. I've synthesized that stat basically by adjusting for how well they did home versus away, and then sort of creating one based upon some of the worst defenses in the Prem last season. And trying to imitate that with their home and away form. And as you can see, Spurs really bad defensively, and that's what puts me off Porro a lot. But I love having Porro in FPL, but the defensive stats of Spurs are so bad, it really puts me off him. So it's difficult to go there given the price. And as you can see, Konsa's defensive stats, Villa way overperformed last season, so I worry for his prospect. Obviously, after game week 3, it looks good. And then you can see there's a lot of value towards the top in Quansah, Murillo, and of course Mykolenko. I think they have really good defensive stats, and they're really good, really nicely priced. So these are my picks then. The time that maybe a few of you have been waiting for. My picks in defense. This is the stable of defenders that I'm picking from. I think that the previous screen you just saw, everyone on that is very viable. You can pick anyone from it and you might do very, very well. But pick your favorites right. But what I will say about defense is you don't want more than 2 premiums, first of all. 1 or 2 premiums, 2 maximum. And you don't want more than 2 4.0s. I would say 1 or 2 premiums, and then 3 to 4 4.5s, and then maximum 1 4.0. Some people will go with no 4.0 and a 4.5. The issue with Munoz there at 5.0, as you probably alluded to from my, or probably predicted, sorry, from my thoughts and feelings surrounding these prices, is Munoz is someone who you brick $500,000 into, because there's no one else there in the 5 million bracket that I'd be interested in at all, at least for a little while. You could say the same for Porro, but there might be an Arsenal or Man City defender that pop up there, and obviously you could go Porro to Munoz. So it's not as bad for the Porro bracket. The Vardiol bracket is nice because then you can move to a Saliba or Gabriel, or a Porro or Munoz, I suppose. And the Trent is kind of an outlier in his price, but look at that XGI. I've standardized all the XGI stats now as well. I kind of took them from different places before, which is not great of me, rather than standardizing them from taking them from one place. So I've been using FBref personally, but I took them from like Premier League stats and FBref previously, and it kind of muddled some up. But they were still fairly close to what they would be anyway if you standardize them to one specific source. But I digress. Trent, great XGI stats. I mean, what's not to like about Trent? What you got to think about is, if you go and look at my Haaland versus Salah video, what can you do with that 2.5 million? You know, because that could be a Saka to a Salah, for example, or it could be a Gordon to a Son. So think about that difference in XGI and whether it's worth it in defense. What the difference is between Trent and that 4.5. It probably is about 0.3, 0.25. My 4.5s then. So I reckon for me, Robinson and Mykolenko are nailed in my team. Quansah is very, very likely nailed in my team. And then the last spot is probably going between Murillo and a 4.0. The 4.0 that covers my current preferences best is Wout Faes. And I'm not recommending him, he just works for my rotation. Again, Harwood, Bellis and Greaves are very viable as a 5th defender. You just need to pick the one that covers your worst fixtures. For example, I think game week 9. Well, I'll show you. I'll show you right now. There you go. You can see why I've put Faes in when you look at these rotations. And if you want to look at the best rotating defenders, I have a full video on that, so go check it out. And I have a full guide on defenders too, so if you want more depth on fixtures, go and have a look at that. As you can see, Trent and obviously Quansah plays for the same team, have great fixtures, and you can see their expected goals conceded at home stat per 90 at the top. And then just under that, you see where the 1.5 is. That is the away stat as well. So they got very good defense last season. As you can see as well, Murillo performs really well in that bracket. Crystal Palace have quite hugely contrasting home and away form. So people who are just going Munoz and playing him every week, don't think you can expect clean sheets from that. I think game week 1 and 3 they'll concede. And then 6, 7, 8 they'll concede, 9 they'll concede, 10 they'll concede. That's my worry about going a solo Henderson or solo Munoz. I think you need to rotate him. So that's my advice to you on that, because I know a lot of the inverted commas elite managers will be going solo Munoz and not rotating him, which I understand because of his goal involvement. But he's still a consideration for me. Porro is still a consideration, but as you can see, fixtures horrific in 3 and 4. Very clean sheet chances, but very good 1 and 2. Robinson, Murillo, Mikolenko, Quansah. I just think there's such good value with such good fixtures. 3 of the 4 are very nailed. Quansah looks... I mean, the thing about picking a centre-back who's medium risk is he's not going to come on. You know, then he's not going to come on to change a game for a manager, is the point. So he either gets benched and you get your bench player, or he plays 90, which is what you want from a player in FPL. So I think I'm going to double up on Trent and Quansah, but we'll see how that goes. And then, as I said, Faes just fits my team well. So if you look at this rotation here, Trent will play every week, so it doesn't matter. But Quansah has Arsenal away in game week 9. Obviously, I don't want to play him then. And Wout Faes has Nottingham at home. And obviously, if I have an extra 0.5, I'd rather have Murillo than Faes, and he has Leicester away. Yeah, also in game week 8, they cover off as well when Liverpool have Chelsea. Faes has Southampton, and Murillo has Palace at home, as you can see. I've also included for you here the expected goals per 90 stat of the opposition. So you're seeing how strong the opposition's attack is. And I've also adjusted that for home and away as well. So you might find that useful. And I've done that for my defenders guide as well, especially my defenders rotation guide. So go and check those out. That's my player pool for defense, and I'm pretty bullish on that. I don't really think it'll change too much. The only thing that will change is the structure of it. For example, if I want to have 2 premiums or 1. Right now I'm swaying towards 1 because the 4.5 bracket holds a lot of value, and matches are going way past 95 minutes. Closing on 100 minutes sometimes, so clean sheets are dropping. You kind of just want nailed 90+ players who will play for good defensive sides and hopefully try and squeeze the ones who have good attacking threat in too. But that's why I'm not spending too much on defense, other than maybe 1 or 2 premium max. Okay. All right then, midfield shortlist, and for this one, what I will say is, let me get closer to the camera here. What I will say is, I'll explain it first of all. So when there's an asterisk next to a player, what I've done versus this and my old video on midfielders, again, it's more in depth. Go and check that out if you want to understand players like Mintegs, etc. and you're wondering why they're not on here. Go and have a look at that video. What you're seeing here is an asterisk next to players who take penalties, which is obviously a good thing. What I've also done is, so the mean number of penalties in a Premier League season is about 97.8 or 98, something like that. What I've done is divided that by the number of teams, of course, which is 20. So that gives you around about 4.85 or 4 or 5 penalties per team. If you convert that into XG, it's around about 0.12 or 0.13 per game. if they have an extra 4 or 5 goals per game per season from penalties. But that would be assuming they score and they're playing and they take the penalty, which I assume they would on these players who take the penalties here. But because just to adjust for that being a little bit of an overestimation, I've dropped it from 0.13 in addition to 0.12. So all those players with an asterisk, they're non-penalty XGI stats and XG stats and GI stats and G stats. All of those I've added 0.12 on to adjust for the expected amount of penalties per season, rather than using, you know, Man City getting 9 penalties last season or whatever it was. It would skew the stats. I just standardized it. And I feel as though that's more representative than just saying they have a penalty. Adding 0.12 on for you makes it easier to understand. I know I've gone into a bit deep there on that one, but that's my thinking for it. Yeah, I think this is the midfield bracket to pick from. There are outliers here, which I'm sure some of you will be wondering why I haven't included them. Those include Odegaard, who just not worth it versus penalty taking Fernandes. Palmer not fit, or at least, you know, only just coming back late, not necessarily not fit, and has Man City first game. Also a weird pricing. I think they priced him poorly. I think he should have been 10. Foden again late coming back. De Bruyne late coming back. I don't know if there's any others I've really missed. I actually had to do about 2 hours of extra editing to remove Bob from all of this. I really hope Bob gets better soon. By the way, I'm just laughing because how crazy it is that it happened just now when we're all expecting him to start, and there's like there's hundreds of thousands of people with Bob on their team, or tens of thousands of people with Bob on the team, and suddenly he's injured, which really sucks for him. But just crazy like how last minute it's happened. Yeah, so I was editing that out, and I really hope he gets better soon. But I don't think you can really go with the Man City mids now until they get more match fit. But Ipswich at home, it'd be great to know who's starting these next two, because then we could pick. I think Silva will replace Bob on right wing, and then they'll fill in left wing accordingly with like Grealish, Doku, De Bruyne, Foden down the middle, Haaland up top for me. So you can only really go with Haaland there. But I'm waffling a little bit. I'm just trying to explain why Bob isn't here, because it is actually a fractured leg, or fractured leg bone. He'll probably be out till late 2024, they said. He might be back. So yeah, really unfortunate, but it does mean a complete restructure of a lot of drafts. And that probably now means that it's not the best to rotate an attack. I think with Bob, it would have been good to rotate an attack, but not anymore. This graphic as well is sorted by attacking quality, so expected goal involvement. And you can see where a lot of the value lies. Nkunku, Bailey, Johnson, if he actually gets good minutes. Again, I've put the risk zone in there for you. If the minutes are bolded on the right, that means that they start and play 90 most games for their team if they're available. If they're not, it means they might cop a benching here and there. That stat, for those of you new to my videos, I went through each player's match logs, and every game they started, I created calculated the average number of minutes when they started. So I took away any minutes from the total that they came off the bench on. So this is assuming they start, and obviously you're going to pick a player assuming they start. And as you can see, some of the players aren't the best for that. Though some players this season will transition better. So for example, Bailey, I expect him to get a lot more minutes this season because he has a lot less composition with no Zaniolo and no Diaby, and him being significantly the best winger there, and probably the best midfielder as well, I would say. So yeah, his minutes are going to go up, and look at that XGI stat, very, very nice. He's someone I'm definitely considering. One last stat to mention as well is Smith Rowe. That's from two or three seasons ago, when the season where he got 10 goals, 2 assists, and he kind of overperformed there. Silva's come out and said he's not quite fully fit for full matches yet, so I would be a little cautious with that. Elanga as well, he's had someone else come in, Sosa, for Nottingham Forest. I do think Elanga will still start, but that'll obviously eat into his minutes too. And of course we have my shortlist, which you've seen some players removed on there. If I just go back there, the players I've removed are Fernandes, Gordon, Johnson, Rogers, I'm pretty sure. Yes. So if there's 2 players for a team, I've generally just picked one of them just to try and give you my view on that. Son and Saka is the big decision for most people. I think you're a safe, boring manager, then go with Saka. It's fine. But if you're chasing upside and hauls and, someone who is just the better finisher, right, and gets in more advanced positions rather than hugging the touchline, it's Heung-min Son. So it's between him or Saka, I think, and I definitely think that you need to have one of those to start, at least. And Nkunku, really good stats. I appreciate I've put a Man City logo there. It should be Chelsea, but I've replaced Oscar Bob there, so that's why that's that. That's why that's that way. I'm not gonna change it now. I've already spent too many hours on editing and stuff. Eze is my favorite pick, and he's my locked pick. So I wouldn't even budge on that. Jota is probably my second kind of locked pick there, just because given we know he's gonna start like the first 1 or 2, he's worth the risk, and he is a risk. Bailey is going way under the radar for his price and involvement, and also his first fixture is phenomenal. It's only his second fixture that's bad if you can somehow rotate or stomach having Arsenal in the second fixture. Jacob Murphy, great preseason stats and great underlying stats as well. But if you look at his game time from last season, yes, he started a lot towards the end, but he always got hooked before 70 minutes. And that's what puts me off him. If he was a 90-minute man, he'd probably be locked in my team. Alanga suffers the same issues as Murphy as well, with threat on the wing for his position. And then Smith Rowe, if we were further into the season, I think he'd be more viable. But the issue is they're getting him up to match fitness because he's rarely played a game in nearly 3 years. Yeah. Let's have a look at my picks for the midfield bracket with regards to fixtures. So this is again adjusted, so you can see this one doesn't show the opposition's expected goals per 90. This one shows their expected goals conceded per 90, and it's adjusted for a home or away. And as you can see, it's a really good run for the Liverpool assets there. So Jota or Salah. It's a really good run for Eze, especially that second and fourth fixture looks very tasty. Murphy or Gordon, for example, you could put in there, have great, probably a great first 3 or 4. But Newcastle don't travel well. I think, at game week 4, they've then got 3 away fixtures, including a Man City fixture at home. That's a bad run. So I think they have 3 good first fixtures, and then it's a bit rough after that. Alanga and Nottingham Forest, 3 phenomenal fixtures to start the season. Then it gets a bit dodgy. Smith Rowe, Fulham. Again, he's got the fixtures. It's just the fitness for me. If you can somehow rotate him out of the first match and then play him the second, I think that could be really, really profitable. As you can see, 3 plum fixtures there after that Man United away fixture. Who else have I missed? Nkunku. The issue with him there is it's similar to someone like Smith Rowe, where the first fixture, maybe not necessarily for fitness for Nkunku, but more so playing Man City, it's not great. I've been toying around with my draft a little bit, and I think I've currently replaced Nkunku. Sorry, Bob with Nkunku, hence why the Bob Man City icon was there still, logo was there. But it's that first fixture for me, and if you're wildcarding, which we basically are wildcarding, if you're wildcarding or free hitting into like a Man City a home fixture for an attacker, it doesn't feel optimal to me. So I wonder whether it's worth waiting till game week 3 or game week 5 to bring in Nkunku, but we'll see. Son's first 2 fixtures phenomenal, arguably, outside of Liverpool assets, or the Fulham or Nottingham Forest assets, the best two opening fixtures. Then it gets a bit rough in 3 and 4, but it spares attackers, right? So you're not really too bothered. What you should be comparing there is Saka and Son as well. But remember, picking one of them means you can just transfer into the other if you need to. Okay. Again, there's more fixtures in my other videos if you want to see the rest of the fixtures and what I think of the difficulties. On to the forwards. And we have, above me is my favourite forwards there. This is the shortlist. And it's quite a small shortlist, isn't it? And I think you could even narrow it down even more, which I'm going to. The Haaland and Isak, I think you already decide whether you're getting Haaland before you start your draft. That's your first decision, right? So we won't talk about him that much. He's the best player in the game. What else is there to say? You know, he's the best player in the game. The first fixture is not one you'd captain him in, but then he's got Ipswich at home. So, I mean, if you don't have him, you're going to have to buy a giant couch to hide behind for game week 2. Newcastle, again, first 3 games, really, really good. Especially that first game, they could really put many past Southampton at St James's Park. And Isak is just an elite player, an elite asset, and he's underpriced this year. Chris Wood there. I had a look at Wood's stats, and what worries me about Chris Wood is that he's massively overperformed his stats versus previous years. Versus previous years, you know, he was at like a 0.3 XGI a lot of the time, but then he's shot up. By the way, I know Watkins is 9.0. It's just an error. He's shot up from 0.3, 0.4, 0.2 in some seasons to 0.7. I wonder whether he can sustain it. A lot of Forest fans expect him to keep playing until 1 year's fit, and it will be till September. But he has amazing fixtures and form, and he should be getting a lot of minutes. And there are actually less reserve strikers at Forest than there are at Fulham. Fulham, there's Stansfield, Jimenez, Vinicius, who are all vying for that solo striker spot. So I actually think he'll get more minutes than Muniz, and the first fixture is definitely better for him. Second fixture, they both have, I almost said relegated sides again, newly promoted sides. What's not to like? Watkins, who should be 9.0 there, way overperformed and is too expensive. He should be the same price as Isaac. They should be the same price, right? They should both be 9 or both be 8.5, and he's too expensive. First fixture is actually really good. It's just that second fixture. So I think he's one to consider for game week 3. João Pedro is very interesting because when you add his penalty stats, as you can see with the asterisks, I've added 0.12 onto all of those. Actually becomes a very, very interesting prospect. The issue there is his fixtures are horrific. The first 3, you're not going to want to play him in any of them. I suppose you could play him in game week 1 and 2, but it just doesn't feel optimal, does it? When you've got Chris Wood playing Bournemouth at home and Southampton, and Muniz playing Man United, and then I think is it Leicester at home. Just those fixtures aren't close to Fulham's and Forest's, so that's my issue there. But very viable pick, very, very viable pick. And now he's not injured, and has played and scored in the preseason friendly. I think he's much more of a consideration. I just don't like the fixtures. Everton away is really, really tough fixture for sure. We have Dominic Solanke. He is one of my favorite picks. For me, he's the 3rd best striking pick in the game right now, and those stats should improve for him. In a much better side in Spurs and a much better attack, and much more chances created for him with that phenomenal free behind him. I have just too pricey for me. Maybe if he was 7.5, it'd be more interesting. Interesting that he's 2 million cheaper than Saka and 500,000 cheaper than Odegaard. But I just can't see Havertz not losing minutes to Jesus. And when he doesn't lose minutes to Jesus, then he'll be playing in midfield, which isn't as interesting, is it? I certainly think he'll make it into a lot of teams when the fixtures turn, but I just don't think it's worth it right now. There's better options for cheaper. This is my shortlist then. I'm sure you could tell what my shortlist is going to be already. Pedro just misses out. If you need that 0.5, you could put Pedro in, absolutely. For me, Haaland and Isak are easily the best options, and then it's one of the other 3. If you can afford it, Solanke is better than the other 2. I've put medium risk just while he beds into Spurs, but he should be low risk, really. Daniel Levy's not going to break the record transfer fee at Spurs to then have him benched this early in the window. Chris Wood versus Muniz is the other one if you don't go with Solanke, or if you don't go with Haaland, for example. These are the considerations. So tough. I think I've swayed so much between each of these. Mic there. Yeah, I think right now I would go Chris Wood out of these 2. Chris Wood, more minutes. As you can see, performed better last season. Muniz really dipped at the end of last season. More form in pre-season as well for Chris Wood. And I actually think he has a lot more of a settled front line there to feed him, and they all feed him as well. Less threat off the bench as well. I know Awoniyi's there, and eventually he'll play, but he's not match fit, and Muniz has 3 strikers vying for his minutes, but they're both very viable, as is Pedro. In my opinion, it's Haaland, then Isak, Solanke, then Wood, then Muniz, Pedro. Those are my considerations up front. As I said, Pedro just misses out, but it very easily could come in here. If you want to see the Brighton fixtures, they're in my forwards guide as well. Much like the midfielders, I've done the same here for the forwards, and as you can see, just great fixtures for all 5 of them, really. I think Solanke could be a season keeper, so I don't really mind the 3 and 4 fixture, though. If you have a spare transfer, you might go Watkins then, you know? Or you might even go Muniz if he's getting 90 minutes every week. Getting hooked at 60, it's not really appealing. What's not to like about all these fixtures? Look at those Nottingham Forest fixtures. 1.8, 1.8, 2.0 first fixtures. Isak 2.2, 1.4, 1.8. Remember, you want these numbers to be high for attackers and low for defenders. On my guides. Solanke 1.8, 1.7. Muniz 1.7, 2.2, 1.8, 2.1, 1.8. I mean, it's phenomenal, isn't it? It's just a shame we don't have a 90-minute Fulham asset that we're all super keen on. Kind of up in the air, isn't it? I think Robinson's the only lock for me. After that, you know, it's really difficult to call Muniz and Smith Rowe. Muniz much more susceptible to getting hooked early, while Smith Rowe, while he's getting match fit, will have to get hooked early. Okay. Did I miss anything? Oh yeah, I'll just go and mention my favorite midfielders right now, because I did actually forget to say that. For me, Son, Nkunku, Eze, Jota, Bailey, and Murphy are my favorite right now. That could easily change. If we get comments about Alanga or Smith Rowe being nailed or more important for the sides, I think they would then supersede Murphy. And Murphy is a short-term pick. I just want to make that clear. The same with Jota. The other ones like Bailey, Eze, Nkunku, Saka, Son, Smith Rowe, those are much longer-term picks. Alanga maybe a mid-term. But yeah, there's just a lot of viable players there. It's really, really nice bracket. Where are we up to, guys? Oh, that's it from me, actually. I'll just give you my final thoughts. Make sure you're picking expected starters. Pick viable picks that you like as well. Go through my videos, or just go through this video as well, and just have a look from the pool and see what picks you like, because I think these are all the best viable picks. I haven't picked them out for you, as in I haven't just said pick these 5 and these 3 and these 5. I'm saying these are the ones, this is the pool to pick from for the biggest points potential, in my opinion. Yeah, pick a pricing structure. I mentioned that at the start of the video. You need to have a pricing structure that's flexible so you can escape players quite easily. That's why I don't like the 8.5 bracket in midfield. I don't like loads of premiums in defense. I don't like the Ollie Watkins bracket. I don't like the Havertz bracket, for example. In terms of planning, first 5 game weeks, plan for an attack, because you'll use your transfers on attackers. In defense, you want to plan longer term, and that's where it'll take some time to maybe plan things out. Go look at my defender rotations video. It's really useful for things like that. But that's where you don't want to be using transfers. You don't want to be taking Porro out game week 3. You want to rotate him if you can. Also look out for game week 2's plum fixtures and freeze, because maybe you can bench people until then, or maybe you pick someone right now who doesn't have the best game week 1 but has an amazing game week 2. Fulham players, for example. Also, don't lose faith after 1 game week. You know, trust the process. If you've picked viable players and they've played, 80, 90 minutes in that game week and they look good, nothing to worry about. Yeah. Yeah, so I actually may do a stream on Friday before the deadline. So maybe 1.5 to 2 hours, or 1 to 2 hours before the deadline, if I can get all my work done. I will do a stream on YouTube. I also stream on Twitch as well, sometimes do gaming streams. I haven't had much time recently, but I also stream on there. I'm on Twitter, which some of you found me on, and then I have a Throne if you want to buy me a little something. There's some... Throne is basically a website where a creator can put up gifts or things they want, and then you can buy them, basically. That's all it is, and they get delivered to them. It's great. Anyway, that's it from me. come join the stream. It'll be fun. Subscribe and turn your notifications on. If you like the video, liking it will not only bookmark it for you to make things easier to come back to and look through, also helps my videos out. Commenting helps me out. Yeah. Good luck to you. I will see some of you hopefully in that deadline stream. Go check out my other guides and all the best. It's gonna be a good one. See ya.